My name is Akhil Maheshwari, and on behalf of Core and CL Digital, I welcome you all in this session. We all know the importance of business continuity, and this can be further understood from the statement given in April 2020 by our respected Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi ji, wherein he stated that ministry should prepare a business continuity plan. Having a robust BCM is imperative for the smooth functioning of the businesses. So the need for having an automated BCMS tool cannot be overlooked. In continuation of that, for this event, Tejas Katwala, CEO of our partner CL Digital, will be presenting why he believes 2022 is the right time for Indian business to follow suit and deliver the benefits of business continuity software to their own risk control programs. He will also be joined by his colleague, Paul Gant. Tejas will outline what the benefits are of having a BCMS automation tool, how they form an essential part of any effective risk management program, and how you can best present these benefits to your senior management and board members. So without taking further time, I hand over the baton to Tejas. Tejas, over to you, please. Thank you.
Hello, everybody, and hopefully you can hear me. Again, my name is Tejas Katwala, and Akhil, thank you so much for the introduction. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can all jump into the presentation. First of all, thank you, everybody, for joining us. We're looking forward to going through this webinar and talking about the importance of why Indian businesses should automate their BCP now. The areas that I wanted to cover: number one, what the classic BCP model looks like today. How are many of us working the program and what the flow looks like? And then I want to be able to move into the new risk and resilience ecosystem. Why do we need to make this shift? Why will automation help with moving over to a model that allows us to better manage the process and the program across the enterprise? As we go through that, we'll talk about the benefits of automation and then take a look at automation in action by Paul Gant. And then we'll leave some space towards the end so that we can have some Q&A time. So let me go ahead and jump right in. First, let's spend a couple of minutes on the classic BCP model. Typically, the BCP model starts with a business continuity management team, and the management team engages the business. I won't go through every single detail of the process and how the policies and stakeholders come together. I'll keep it a little bit high level. But as the program, as the managers engage the business, they're going to approach tech ops and business lines and perform the business impact assessment. Many times this business impact assessment without automation happens with Word documents or Excel spreadsheets. And then there will be annual cycles to review and to go back and forth to make sure that we are looking at the right information. Within this little process here, there are a lot of different versions and changes to data happening across each of these cycles. Once we have the BIA completed, we're going to go ahead and build those business continuity plans. And without automation, all of this will be handled manually and without much version control, especially as we go through the loop of updating these plans. Once we have the latest version, for some of the plans that we create, we're going to go through exercise and testing. Again, another manual process that may sit inside of spreadsheets and Word documents. And as we go through that exercise, we may have some iterations and can make some updates to the plan, and then take the issues and lessons learned and bring that back to the plan. And you'll notice at the end of this process, what we have is a document. So through all these revisions, we have a document. We may also have some extra data here from the BIA, but that might also be unmanaged, uncontrolled. And the major benefit out of the classic classic BCP model is audit and compliance, which is very important. So I don't want to take away the importance of a BCP to satisfy audit and compliance, because without audit and compliance, many organizations that are heavily regulated cannot operate. So that check in the box gives us the ability to do that. But as we move forward and we take a look at the lack of automation, we find that a lot of the programs that we work with find themselves inside of homegrown databases, Excel spreadsheets, Word documents, and the biggest benefit, yes, it may give you some customer assurance. The manual processes or using tools that are somewhat uncontrolled give you the ability to stand up an ISO framework and perhaps even go for certification. But the benefits here are not enough to really power a modern BCP today. So let's take a look at why it's important for us to do that. When we look at today, we see that there's a lot of digital transformation across the enterprise, across industry. So this is no longer about just a regulated industry. It's about all organizations that have gone through a digital transformation. And as Akhil mentioned earlier, there are new mandates coming out of the government, which are pushing all organizations to have business continuity in place. And in place, so this way we have some control around the process. And because we now live in the new normal through the pandemic, we have learned that there's a lot of use for a business continuity plan, a business continuity program, and the information that comes from it. Unfortunately, the classic model resulted in a lot of data blind spots. Number one, the plans, when we needed them at the start of the pandemic with crisis teams, it really did not give operational insights and impacts. It gave process and procedure, but it did not give us the view of what was impacted if we did not have a location available to us, if we did not have people available to us. What are the suppliers doing and what are their capacities? We also did not have service mappings, which is critical today. Service mappings will identify all the services that we deliver to customers and the people, process, technology behind it, and how that comes together and what happens when there's an impact and what might be the customer facing impact. So these data blind spots were critical over the last couple of years as the pandemic started to unfold. And the plans that we produced, again, fantastic for compliance, really did not give leadership the insight they needed. So as we move forward, boards and the C-suite organizational leaders, they're looking for the BCP to change, to evolve. So this way, that very important people, process, technology information that sits within BIAs, that sit within plans, comes out of that, and you have data to work with. In order to do that, we need to be able to have a system that allows us to bring that information together, to manage it in one place, and to be able to then deliver that data across, because as much as valuable as the plans are from a compliance perspective, data is what leaders and the C-suite will be able to utilize at time of need. So as an example of that, let's take a look at the organization across all governance areas. When we are looking at a healthy organization, everything is fine. But when we introduce just a little bit of change, an application change, it can set off a series of events across the service delivery chain that has an impact. These impacts, when you just look at things from a siloed plan perspective, they go unnoticed until there's an incident. And then we are starting to work in real time and trying to pull together information that we could have otherwise had we looked at things from a more connected data perspective when it comes to our BCP. An example, a use case from taking a look at the financial space, if we take a look at what's required today and how automation may help, number one, we would have a library of business services. These are those customer-facing services, which I mentioned, and impact tolerance, so we understand how tolerant we need to be, or what might create issues for us if a certain service does not fall within that tolerance. And then the connection to the people, technology, locations, third parties, all the different lenses that we need. And when we take a look at this, we see that all of this information needs to work together. So we can't sit within our departmental silos We cannot sit within our business line silos. This is all happening across the organization. So information needs to be shared, it needs to be connected, and it's three-dimensional, right? So we are not just looking at a simple plan that gives us those instructions. We actually need more than that. And in order to do that, we need to take a look at our BCP and come up with a new process, a new way of looking at BCP. And the way that I like to bring this to our customers is to think about a new resilient ecosystem. Why? Because business continuity will start here with our data and plans. Again, remember, we're not saying let's eliminate plans. This is very much needed, but we also need the data. And that's going to have a life cycle on its own. But business continuity historically has kind of sat in its island while other parts of governance sat in their respective islands, creating all these silos. But today, we need all of these different processes to come together and work together. So this way we can connect all of those different dots within enterprise risk that touch cyber, IS recovery, operational resilience, third parties, and crisis. It has to be a continuous process. And there also needs to be connectivity up to audit and compliance. So this way, number one, we put that check in the box so that we can be in business. But number two, we have a process that feeds all other processes within this governance enterprise risk domain. So if we have the data from business continuity, this is going to deliver people, process, technology, and all those service mappings to the enterprise risk program. The enterprise risk program is going to utilize this for crisis management and cybersecurity, which is crucial today. Without information about people, process, technology, and the mappings up to services, your cyber program is going to have a number of holes in it. You're not going to understand the impact. Just because there's a application that's been identified with a potential cyber issue, that is only the starting point. We need to understand what the impact will be on the business across the board, which processes are impacted, what customers are impacted. In order to do all of that, we need to have an operating model that brings everything together. And there's communication between all of these processes. When we can do that in an automated fashion, we have the ability to then make our program about data. One of the most important things that I like to bring out about the move to automation is the fact that your program is then centered on data versus documents. Documents and reports can always be produced as an output of your program, but if you have good quality data, you can then supply that and operationalize your business continuity program. So it's more than just compliance. You are now helping the organization operate more effectively day in and day out. And when there is an incident, when there is an issue, any kind of disruption, not just a worst case scenario, you now have the data points to help leadership make the appropriate decisions. Without this ecosystem, that decision-making ability is highly compromised. It's very slow, as we learned through the early parts of COVID. Leadership did not have the data they needed because everything was mostly paper-based. So some of the benefits you're going to gain from automation: number one, your BCP will become trackable and secure. In order for a program to succeed and thrive today, you need to have workflow. You need to understand who has completed which tasks and which tasks are now going to be up for review. Without that type of control, it's very difficult to track all of the information that comes into a BCP today across the enterprise. This is no longer about a business continuity manager doing that one-on-one interview or having a department manager fill out a form. This is about taking that data and connecting it to other parts of your organization. So this way we can have a more holistic view of things. To do that, all of that information has to be trackable. One of the biggest benefits that you're going to gain through automation is the ability to get visibility into your enterprise. If you have the mapping and the relationships between people, process, technology, and the very important services, then you have the ability to understand how things actually operate. There is no database available in an enterprise that has that people, process, technology information connected up to services. That's a very, very important mapping. That's a very important database. And operationally, that database can connect up to ERP, connect up to customer relationship management, can connect back to technology. It becomes the gateway to operational effectiveness. You're going to be able to ensure consistency across governance activities. One of the biggest problems that any governance program has is consistency, because everyone is doing things on their own. So you have silos all over the place. But if your BCP can deliver consistent data to these other programs, then you have the ability for everyone to speak the same language. Once you're able to do that, the data becomes meaningful. One of the most important pieces to understand about automation is that your process will change. So how you automate is almost as important as the actual act of automation. Your program needs to be configurable. It has to adapt, because whatever you end up putting in place today will change over time. Regulatory requirements are going to change. Operating environments are going to change. Digital transformation will have an impact across the board, across all of your processes. So we need to adapt. So when you go to automation, make sure you have the ability to adapt that process to how you operate today. Otherwise, what we find is most programs, they may do well through version 1 of automation, but then once the organization changes, the program is out of step, out of sync, and no longer delivering the value that it should be delivering. And most importantly, when you automate, the biggest benefit your organization is going to have is your program will deliver data that matters. It'll matter to leadership. It's going to matter to compliance, to external auditors. Everyone across the enterprise will have data that's going to be usable and useful to carry out their day in and day out activity. Delivering data that matters should be the single most important focus that you have through automation. Because once you can do that, then you are creating value for the enterprise. Once you create that value, it becomes easier and easier for you to evolve your program, which brings up one of my last points in my session, or my portion of this session, which is to make sure that when you do go down the path of automation, to do it in bite-sized pieces. We've seen many organizations try to boil the ocean, do everything together at one time. The problem with that is you're going to require a lot of time to stand up a program. And today, you don't have the benefit of that kind of time. So instead of taking a waterfall approach to standing up a program for business continuity, take a more agile approach. Have many wins across the across your timeline, and clearly communicate what your program is trying to achieve during the first phase, second phase, third phase of your program, so everyone understands where you are. That clear communication will help you gain stakeholder support, which is critical. It's also going to give you the adoption from the business that you're going to need. When you identify what your goals are, everyone understands how they can support that. And at the end of the day, they will all support the drive for you to have data instead of just plans that drive your program. So with that said, let me hand over to Paul Gant, who's actually going to show us what automation looks like. So Paul, please take it away.
Great. Thank you very much, Tejas. Thank you for that. I am now going to share my screen, which I think will replace yours. Let me just do that. Okay, so really what I'd like to do, hello everybody, first of all, thank you for joining. What I'd like to do to start with is really just reiterate some of the key aspects of our solution which relate to what Tejas has just been talking about. So we've got this three-pronged focus of our software, which addresses those key items of, first of all, delivering value from data. Tejas referenced this 2 or 3 times. It's pulling together the information that you gather, the hard-fought information during a business continuity and operational resilience cycle. It's got to be used effectively because there's so much power in it. So we believe very strongly in delivering value from the data that you gather. Secondly, if you're going to gather that data, you have to engage end users. The thing about operational risk solutions of all types, focusing on all different areas, are that you're asking people to enter data. Sorry, I don't know if I was unmuted there or muted, but it seemed to go on and off. Second point is you've got to engage end users, because an operational resilience program is going to need to gather information from people who are only engaging in this part-time. So you need to make them want to enter information into your program. And thirdly, you've got to be able to fit the solution to your precise needs. And that comes from the no-code platform upon which we have built our CL360 solution, which allows us to configure to very precise client expectations. So I think that's the first thing I wanted to show, to make an important sort of positioning, if you like, of the way that we've considered our solution. The second thing I wanted to show before I start this session is to really look at the fact that we have a lot of integrations that we build into the system. So you're pulling data from all sorts of different places. I'm not going to reference this during the demonstration because this is a short, condensed session, but just be aware that we deliver to all sorts of solutions, and all sorts of solutions bring data into our CL360. And that data integration sits at the heart of what we do, as does mobility. So I'm not going to demonstrate mobile applications specifically, but please be aware that our solution, first of all, enables anything that you can see on a big computer screen, and you're going to be seeing a demonstration of that soon, just on a normal computer screen, can also be utilized on a tablet device of any size. It's a consistent HTML5 output, which just repurposes itself for whatever size of screen you might be using. That's an important point, because you can use it anywhere on the go. And secondly, there are specialist mobile apps on Android and iOS, which mean that even people who aren't interested in the topic, but you want them to be carrying a plan that's up to date, if they have that app on their mobile device, you will know that that is always being maintained up to date, even though the person doesn't have to do anything at all. The app just ensures that it's synchronized in the background. So those are the key issues I wanted to start off with first. And now let me move into showing you glimpses of the software to give you a look and feel for how our solution addresses the areas that Tejas was talking about. This will be about 10 minutes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start by giving you just an orientation clip looking at how the system operates, its general operating style. I'm then going to move straight into high value reporting. I'm not going to dwell on data entry or entering information into the system. That would take longer than we have today. And you'd only want to see that if you're interested in this kind of solution, which of course, if you are, we'd all be delighted, but I'm not going to start going into that today. And then we're also very keen at the end to leave space for questions here. We are going to be launching a poll with some questions that we have in there, which you might be interested to participate in, because you'll see the results across everybody who's attending. And I think that will then wrap up the session. Okay, so let me move now then to looking at the system itself. And here you are seeing me log in to the solution. I'm a fictitious character here. We have an organization called Carlyle Investments that we use as the background for this. And when you first log into the system, this is where you arrive. You arrive at your organizational dashboard. And what you're seeing here is the layout of the screen for that dashboard. You can see we've got a menu on the left-hand side, which tailors itself according to the profile or the permissions of the person who's logged in. So this is an administrator, so they're seeing all the functionality. You have a bar on the top, which I'll come back to in a second. And then you have, on the dashboard, you have a series of tabs, which allow you to create a layout of the sort of information that you think the people in your organization would be keen to see in those different roles. So what we're saying to start with, for example, is the user dashboard tab number 1, which is showing my BC plans, which plans I've logged in, which plans am I interested in. Also, which IT applications may I be involved in? I might be working with the IT department on making sure that IT applications meet the requirements and recovery time objectives of our processes, which are those of mine. Next, workflow. Tejas talked a lot about the need to guarantee that things are happening on time and in the right sequence. The task management portion that you're seeing there is how that is controlled. So at any point, you can see on a dashboard which of the tasks that have been assigned are being completed, which are awaiting completion, which are now overdue and I need to start chasing. And that is your compliance framework for making sure that everything is happening as you've designed the program. And then here we have risks. There was a question that I saw earlier about, is this part of a broader operational risk platform? And yes, it is. We have a full enterprise risk management solution, of which what we're showing you today is a portion of that. But here we're sort of touching on that, the risks that might have been identified through the business continuity program and the issues that come from those risks where you need to be applying controls. So that's what you're seeing on the screen there in front of you. Okay, so if we just look now at the way the menu is structured, you'll see on the left-hand side, we can hide that menu, and sometimes we need that to make more space. You'll see that in something I'm going to show you later. And then on the top right, we have the details of the person who has logged in. So here we have Sarah Maddox, and we'll see a couple of things. First of all, you can translate the complete interface, content and interface itself into the language of your choice. This is a pre-recorded clip, so I'm showing that being translated into German in this case, but any language that you see on that list there can be used for helping people to complete information and understand it fully. You then have the ability for individual users, if they so wish, to enter their own profile information into the system. Typically, they wouldn't. Typically, this information would be synchronized with your HR database so that any employee information that you want for your contact lists and the ability to reach people in emergencies would automatically be synchronized into the system. But if you want people to check and update that here, then you have that ability to do that. So going back to the starting screen again, and let's just step through some of the other items on here. As you see, there are 5 other tabs, and I'm going to look at 4 of them. The first is program controls. This is where you are checking that everything is up to date. Do you understand the data that's being stored in your program? And is everything meeting the expectations that you have for the delivery of that program? And here's an interesting example of that way that we join the dots of the data in the system. Here you're seeing that CL360, which is the system, the core system, has a number of modules, so risk management, operational resilience, COVID solutions, etc. One of those solutions is third-party risk management. When we click on that dot, we get all the suppliers that we are assessing as part of our third-party risk management. So this is a very useful high-level view of how the solution is brought together and how the data is being shared across all the different parts of your enterprise risk management program. So that's how that works. If we go back up to the top again, there's a couple now of on-screen reports that I'd quite like to show you. So this is a way of being able to display information that you would normally have to view in an Excel spreadsheet or in a report, but you can view that in pre-canned and pre-built reports on the screen. So here, for example, we're seeing that we've got a whole series of departments here who own a plan, each owns a plan, and they're part of different divisions or groups. And we can roll these plans up from lower in the hierarchy right up to the top of the organization and see how these aggregate across those different components in the hierarchy. And the great thing is we can sort these on the screen. So rather than sorting them in an Excel spreadsheet, we just sort them here. So we can see all the plans that haven't been started yet with a 0% start and all those that are close to completion. So that's a nice way of being able to engage with that. This is another similar report where we're looking to align the recoverability of our IT applications with the criticality of the processes that those IT applications are supporting. And we're looking for an alignment there. That's a very important thing. And then the final thing I want to show you here on this introduction is how I mentioned earlier that we take integration very seriously and the ability to link the data between our system and other solutions, either bringing information in, passing it out, or even collaborating together. Here's an interesting example of that. This is showing and demonstrating how we have integrated Microsoft Power BI into the system. Now, we think this is really important because Many organizations now have solutions such as Tableau, Cognos, Click, Power BI, and they have data scientists who really understand how to get great value out of analytics. So for our clients that have that sort of capability in the organization, we have a business intelligence connector. And this allows us to bring into the system the business intelligence tool of our client's choice. And then that client can engage with the help of their data scientists in all sorts of tracking information. We saw their third-party analytics, there's a plan metrics, and then we're into geospatial information. So this really provides a way of making sure that you can get maximum value out of the data that's being brought into the system, not only by our reporting capabilities, which I'm going to show you now, but also using third-party tools that you may have a lot of expertise already in the business for, which you think would be helpful to you. Let me just check on time. I think we're okay for just a few more minutes. So what I'm going to show you next is, what does it look like if you actually go into the system and you want to enter some information? Well, here's an example of a business continuity plan, which might be owned by a representative in the business. You can see here the menu is now nice and simple because we have one person who's going to come in on behalf of the finance department and enter the information around their plan. You can see we're immediately told what is the current status of the plan completion. We have a tick list here with the overall sections of the plan and which are being completed and which haven't. And then we have a series of tabs that we would step through where we enter the detailed information around the department, call lists, processes, where maybe we'd be conducting our business impact analysis, resource requirements, plan workflow, test and exercise. You can see these headings here. I'm not going to go into this and show any more of it because we could just spend a lot of time going into the detail of this, which I find fascinating, but we don't really have the time for in the context of today's session. But this is an example of a data entry screen where information would be entered into the system. So that's a bit of background for you. Let's move now to the high level outputs from this. So having done the hard work of building our program, of working out what steps are we going to take in what sequence, of engaging our end users and having people enter information and build plans, conduct business impact analyses, align the requirements of the different parts of our organization. How do we then get value from all this? Really referring to the key aspects that Tejas has just been talking about earlier. Well, let me start with probably the thing you'll be thinking about first, which is, how do I get a plan out of this? Because regardless of all the advanced possibilities, one of the things that you'll definitely want to do is just have a business continuity plan that looks great and that can end up on a boardroom table or at any part in your organization and really tick all the boxes from a appearance and information perspective. To do that, we have integrated our solution with Microsoft Word and Microsoft PowerPoint. So we're able to create very nicely branded business continuity plans, as we can with all our reports, actually. And here you can see the front page of a branded plan for this fictitious organization that this demonstration is geared around, which is Carlisle Investments. So we have the business continuity plan, and the detail of the plan pulls in all the data that's been stored in the system through the process we've just been talking about. So as people have been entering the data into the system, it is available in the database. And then your plan takes a structure that you've designed in Word. So it absolutely matches your look and feel of your organization, the branding expectations, the fonts, the color coding, the footers, the headers, a beautiful looking document, then pulls in all the detailed information that's been entered through the business continuity and operation resilience cycle. So you have business continuity plans, crisis management plans, all available to you at the flick of a button. This is showing examples of integration with Word here. We also integrate with PowerPoint because often we find that business continuity teams have to deliver maybe a monthly presentation to a management team of some type, which is developed in PowerPoint. And so rather than having to cut and paste from various documents into a PowerPoint slideshow, you can build your template in PowerPoint. And then once a month, as you're about to go into that meeting, you can push a button and the PowerPoint will populate with the latest information that's in your business continuity program. So that can then be presented to your management team. So that's an important thing. And that's a starting point. The baseline really is to have a great plan that contains in the information that's been entered into your program that looks good, that can be synchronized with mobile devices, and will deliver that core requirements of business continuity in a very flexible way. But I'm now going to go really right to the end game of what is the real power behind this that moves the program forward in the way that Tejas was talking about. To show you that, I'm going to look at an example of a very powerful piece of joining the dots with the data that you've entered throughout the program. What you're seeing here is a pre-built question that you might want to ask in an incident. So much of the data is valuable in building a more resilient organization, but often the same data can be used in helping you to recover if something does go wrong, because joining the dots together has value on both sides, protecting and recovering. This is an example that could be used for both, but imagine this was being used from a recovery perspective. Imagine that we had lost a data center and we want to understand the consequences of that quite rapidly. We'd come here, we would select which of the data centers it is that we've lost. In this case, let's assume it's our London data center. And as we did that, we would see on the bottom of the screen an object representing that data center appear. If I then click on that, the next thing I would see is, okay, which are the physical servers that are located in that data center? In actual fact, you might want to start with rooms or racks. You could start at different levels, but keeping it simple, we're going to start straight away with physical servers. And we can see that Colab 01 has the largest number of users. So we're interested to understand what's the consequence of losing Colab 01. Well, the first thing we need to know is that which software applications are running on that server. And you can see here we have 4, with Charles River as being the one with the most users. So what we want to do next is, okay, let's look at who's using Charles River. We click on that and we see that we have one business process in our organization, which is our client services function, which is utilizing the Charles River software application. But that's not the end of the story, because what we need to know is which of our business services depend on the client services function. And if we click on client services, we see in actual fact, there are 4 critical or important business services which depend on the client service process functioning. Now you can see this is a technology example. You can see there's an app store, a customer loyalty program, online purchasing and online support all depend on client services being in action. And client services depends on Charles River working. Charles River depends on the Colab 01 application server being in action, and the Colab 01 server depends on the London data center being in action. So we, in an emergency, have joined the dots here, and straight away we understand the consequences of the failure of a particular piece of technology. And then at the end of all that, we can not only understand that, we can also understand the financial value over a year or whatever period of time that you may choose of the loss of that particular important business service. So that is a really, I think, very powerful way of demonstrating the ability to join the dots. And imagine you can do this with all the data that you would gather. On demand, you can explore that information and understand and track consequence, which helps you both to prepare a more resilient organization and then recover more effectively. Okay, there's one more thing I want to show you before I close this session. And that is reporting on gaps and how we demonstrate the different levels of reporting. So when I say gaps, what I'm talking about in this case is a gap between the recovery time capability of software applications, which you see the software applications listed here, and their recovery time capability. So how fast can the IT function recover those different applications, and how fast the processes that use those software applications would need them back in action if they are going to achieve their recovery time objective. Now, I think you can probably see here that some are being highlighted in red, and those are the important ones. So what this is telling is that Workday, which is run from our IT data center in London, has an 8-hour recovery time capability. But it's showing in red because there are multiple processes or business services that need it to be recovered within 4 hours. That is showing in the earliest recovery time objective column. So what we know straight away is that where there's a red showing here, we've got a gap, and that these people will be developing plans for a 4-hour recovery time, when in actual fact, they'll never be able to achieve that because a software application they must have in place is not going to be recovered for 8 hours. That is central to making sure that programs are coherent and that they work together in a way which delivers outcomes and value, rather than planning in one area, but other areas of the business are not supporting that. That's a basic report and one that you'd want to do. But you may decide you don't want to have a report like that printed out every month and have to look down all the applications and find the gaps. Instead, what you might prefer is to have a rule which says we're only interested in those where a gap exists. And then what we're going to do is we're going to produce that report automatically in the background, maybe once a week, once a day, whenever you want, and we're going to email it to this distribution list. Now, what that is doing is it's taking the manual labor, which is an important part of using software to automate a program, out of your hands and passing it to the system and saying, system, generate this report every month or every week, only look at those where there's a gap and email it out to this distribution list. And that becomes a very powerful movement forward. But there's a further step you can take by applying the trigger. And what the trigger says is, you know what? I want to know about a gap that occurs the moment that it occurs. So in this case, we'd apply some automation, further automation behind the scenes, and we'd develop a rule set which would be constantly watching the data in the system. And in this case, what's happened is that we've discovered, or the system has been has applied that rule and discovered that at this time, on this date, these two software applications no longer support the recovery time objectives of the business processes they support. And this has gone immediately to a specific distribution list that you had chosen. And this shows the real-time power of this. This means that the solution is watching your data while you're doing your normal work and building the program. And it really allows for the system to carry that watchful eye and allowing business continuity professionals to just raise the value of the program all the time. It really allows the improvement in the outcomes because the system's doing that watching and monitoring and managing the program in the background. So those are the key points I wanted to show as part of the demonstration. And what I'd just like to end up on really is summarizing what we see as, in support of the points that Tejas made earlier, the key aspects of our solution. The first is it's very configurable, highly customizable without changing any of the software code. If you want something which is specific to your organization, almost all of our clients do, then we have the ability to deliver that. Secondly, we focus on ease of use so that we pull in users from across the organization and they're entering information on an occasional basis, which is powering your program. Thirdly, we use all the analytics capabilities, all the tricks in the trade to reveal the value in your data, to make sure that you understand what the implications are of the data that you're gathering through the whole business continuity cycle. And then finally, we make sure that we automate all of this and we integrate with other systems such that we pull together your operation resilience or your business continuity solution as a central system of truth to make sure that it contains the facts about the way the organization is storing and managing data around the business continuity cycle. So that is as much as I wanted to say. I think we've about finished on time. If I've been a little bit longer than I anticipated, my apologies. But what we'd like to do now is just publish out a poll because we're interested in your thoughts on this whole aspect of business continuity automation, what you believe is most important for your organization, what the underlying drivers are. And then what we can do is maybe while you're answering that poll, we can answer and talk about some of the questions that have come through on the chat while we've been talking. So let me stop sharing my screen. And there's a lot of questions here. Does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask that we haven't been able to answer during the chat session, so that we can answer those verbally now? Please, if you have any questions, I'm sure Tejas and I'd be delighted to address those.
Hey, Paul. I just wanted to quickly talk to a couple of the questions that were in the chat. So this way everyone can benefit from that. By the way, thank you those that have sent in questions in the chat. Very, very interesting questions that have been coming in. Number one, the platform does support risk management. So when you take a look at what Paul showed, he was showing the business continuity process. We have other ready-built solutions that tackle third-party risk, enterprise risk management, DR, security, and really any other aspect within the GRC umbrella can be automated on our platform. So that is available, and we're happy to get you more information about it. Questions about integration have come through. We have two main ways of integrating with our system. Number one, you can use our data manager, which will allow you to create mappings between our system and the third-party data that you're trying to work with. We also have a REST API. So if what we provide in our platform isn't enough for you, then you can use our REST API and manage that entire data synchronization, back and forth movement yourself. And
yeah, this is RV here. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, okay. So I just wanted to ask a question. I believe this is a SaaS-based tool, and possibly you're hosting it in the cloud. So which cloud it is and how secure it is, because most of the data that you're talking about is company data, and how secure it's going to be. And also, we were talking about some data manager. Are you going to give API also in terms of any data that we need to integrate from the existing ecosystem of the organization?
Will you take that, Tejas?
yeah, sure. Let me tackle that. So the first part of the question, I think, was about our cloud environment. Yes, our platform is available through the cloud. We have our cloud is delivered through multiple cloud providers. We work with IBM Cloud and Oracle Cloud, and also AWS. Our biggest networks are with IBM and Oracle, and we've got a global cloud footprint, or I should say, global cloud network, which pretty much covers the entire globe.
Okay. About the API, the second question which I asked in terms of integrating with the existing ecosystem.
Sure. About the API, can you give me a little bit more information? Are you asking if we have an API?
Yeah. So I also heard, man, even for a HR database, for an individual to log in, it can probably get connected. Likewise, I may have multiple such data within the organization, which I could connect. So, does it provide an API within the overall tool, or it's a customized one and a separate one that needs to be built up?
Right. So we do have a REST API, and you can use that for all of your CRUD operations, create, you also have access to the data manager. The data manager is built into the platform, and that will give you the ability to map our system to the third-party data. So if you have HR information coming in, you can use our data manager to do that. If you have CSV files that you need to supply us with, then you can also use a data manager to very easily bring information into our system. You can also use our reporting platform and our data manager to export data.
Any other questions? Have we been able to publish the poll, Akhil?
Sure, Paul. Richa, will you please do the needful?
So please just provide the quick feedback. There are just 4 questions, and it would be fascinating to see what your views on all of your questions are. So please just ping away. It's all anonymous. We don't know who's saying what to which, but please answer the questions. It'd be great to see. And while that's happening, are there any further questions that anybody would like to ask?
Paul, how would we be able to reach the team so that in case we have to have an end-to-end demonstration as such?
So if you'd like an end-to-end demonstration, please just reach out to Arkeel, and Arkeel will organize that with me. It would almost certainly be me that would deliver that to you, and I'd be delighted to do so. So yeah. That's interesting. So customers expect it as first requirement, global competition second, and regulators expect it third. Thank you for that.
Sorry, Paul. Can Akhil just drop your email ID so that we can reach out in the chat box?
Prasanna, I have already shared in the chat box. Again, I'll do that. No worries.
There's a question I saw in the chat stream about incident management. So while we're filling out the second question that's coming out on the poll, incident management is part of the platform as well. And you can take a look at tasks and assign tasks in real time for recovery purposes. Basically, the actions and the tasks that you put into your planning process that would get activated and issued during incident time, and then you can track it.
Yeah, thanks, Tejas. In fact, I was the one who asked about it. Are we here again? And basically, from the incident management, whatever that you do, and the success of a tool or a general BCP is the availability of the data during an incident. So that's the reason I asked for it. One is the actual recovery part of the dashboard, and also the data which is already keyed in through the plans and that's available within the tool. Is that something available online during an incident and managing an incident? That was my first question. And towards which, when I talked about an alert mechanism, does it come with a inbuilt notification tool or a kind of a mass notification on a SMS or a mail or something? Mail, I heard, I think you have an alert, but on a mobile SMS part, though we did not cover the mobile application, but I'm sure that SMS notification would also be available.
All right, so Harvey, the couple of answers for you. Number one, we do have the ability to notify people through SMS and email. You can also use mass notification. If you have a mass notification provider, we can integrate with them and deliver it that way. There are other collaborative capabilities that we're actually delivering this year that will let you do even more with SMS. There is a mobile app that will let you take a look at all of your plans and take a look at tasks and activities. So that's available. The incident management dashboard is part of the platform as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so third question up, really looking here is how you support your business continuity program today. We're fascinated to know whether many people do already have software such as ours in place, or whether your organization may have developed an in-house application, maybe using an Access database or something similar, or whether you're using what is probably the conventional starting point, which is Excel documents and Excel for calculations and then Word for publishing the plans. Okay, so that's interesting. The majority is, as we'd expect, on Word Excel, but with a fair chunk, they're almost 30% using in-house software. So if we can just publish the fourth and final question here, and then I think we've done, and we're almost, I think, precisely on time, aren't we? We have 5 minutes to go before the 10 o'clock formal close. Is there a fourth question that we can publish? Great. So this, of course, is very interesting to us to know what the appetite of organizations is for using specialist software. it's something that we always like to ask. So we would be intrigued to see what the answer comes to this one.
While you're answering that, there's another question that's come in from Prashant about the impact during a version upgrade to our software. We are a continuous integration shop. We do have multiple releases throughout the year. The good news is whenever we do have a release, all of our features and new capabilities do not force our customers to have to do anything on their side to upgrade or to update coding or anything like that. That's our job as a SaaS provider. So your job is to simply enjoy the software and use it and turn on the features that you want to turn on. But there won't be any impact to you when we have a version upgrade.
Great, thanks, Tejas. And the final question has come in. So we're saying that about a third of those organizations on this call are not likely to use specialist software. Half are likely, and about 15% are very likely. That's interesting, and it's probably what we find in a general case. So listen, we will be delighted with Continuity and Resilience to present in more detail what it is that we do and can do. So if you are at all interested to see short demonstrations, we can do 30-minute demonstrations, we can do sometimes 3-hour demonstration. It depends on what people want to go into. But typically as a starting point, we do a 1-hour session where we do an overview from beginning to end. And that is typically enough for people to decide, is that something they want to pursue into more detail? And if they do, there's all sorts of sessions and demonstrations that we hold after that. So it's by no means a single demonstration, but a 1-hour slot is typically appropriate for a starting point, rather than the sort of 15 to 20 minutes that you saw today, which was a little bit too high level for you to form more than an impression of our software. So on that note, thanks everybody for joining. Let me hand back to you, Arkeel, to close off the meeting.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Tejas, for this informative session. Really, we got a good insight about BCM automation tool along with the benefits. Now, may I request all the delegates to switch on their camera for a few seconds so that we can take a group photo.
Excellent. What a great thing.
Yeah. Thank you very much. At last, I would like to thank all the participants, those who have joined the sessions. We would also be sharing the recording link with you all separately. And also, not the least, looking forward having you for the upcoming sessions as well. To all, have a good day. Have a great evening. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all.